The series opens with a young woman named Max as she cleans the apartment of a wealthy socialite called Paglioni, who looks at Max with surprise and immediately asks about Maria. Max calmly explains that Maria fell ill suddenly, so the company sent her as a replacement. However, Paglioni says she doesn't have cash to pay right now and promises to send the money later with Maria. Then Paglioni asks Max about the cleaning supplies, leaving her bag and wallet on the table while she goes to fetch what she needs. At that moment, Max discreetly slips the wallet out of the bag. Moments later, she heads into Paglioni's bedroom, where we discover she owns advanced equipment for forging IDs and bank cards. One by one, she alters the cards, replacing the photos and names with her own. Meanwhile, she opens Paglioni's closet, tries on her clothes, checks herself in the mirror, and fully steps into her identity. Later on, Max walks into the bank to access Paglioni's safe deposit box, exploiting the branch manager's love for cats by pretending to be devastated over her cat's death, which instantly earns his sympathy and quick assistance. However, as soon as she leaves the bank, she is suddenly confronted by the police, with Paglioni standing beside them, and Max is arrested on the spot. At the same time, Alice, a police officer assigned to maritime security, is out at sea when he receives a call from headquarters asking him to come in. He's genuinely happy, believing he's finally been called for a real case, and rushes back with renewed hope. However, upon arrival, he's stunned to learn they only want him to escort Max to her local precinct. Once there, his colleagues begin mocking him. Max notices the sarcasm and asks why they're laughing at him, but he doesn't respond. While waiting, Max observes that the team is working on a major art gallery heist. Later, when Alice takes her to the holding cell, she casually remarks that the thief targeting the galleries is clearly intelligent, deliberately misleading the investigators, and that there's a hidden clue no one has noticed yet. Aless scoffs and sarcastically tells her she has 15 days to think about it. Later that night, Aless is surprised when Max calls him from jail, explaining she's entitled to one phone call and chose him because she already knows which gallery will be targeted next. She gives him the name of the location. As soon as he asks how she could possibly know that, Max explains that the thief always leaves a signature behind, and the last mark closely resembles that gallery's logo. Immediately, Aless searches the gallery online and realizes Max is right. At that moment, he understands that solving this case could finally return him to desk duty and investigations. When he asks what she gains from helping him, Max abruptly hangs up. Eventually, Aless heads to the gallery himself and finds the back door wide open. As he steps inside, he sees a man tied up on the floor. Suddenly, someone strikes him on the head, knocking him unconscious. A short while later, the police arrive, demanding to know how Aless predicted the robbery location. Back at the station, Aless sits with his superior, with Max present as well, after he admits she was the one who guided him to the thief's next move. Then Officer Russo proposes that Max and Aless work together to solve the case. Aless is shocked and questions how a criminal could possibly assist the police. Russo explains that the mayor would be thrilled if the case were closed quickly, and given Max's intelligence and sharp instincts, she could be more valuable working with them than sitting in a cell. Aless then requests to return to his desk and leave maritime duty behind. Russo promises that if he closes this case, she'll personally speak to the higher-ups on his behalf. Afterward, Aless and Max leave the station. He reminds her firmly that he's a police officer and she's a criminal, and that their relationship must stay strictly within those boundaries. He insists they review the full case file first. Max dismisses the idea as a waste of time and suggests they head straight to Noah and Joey at the auction house instead. Eventually, Aless agrees. On the way, Max tells him to call her Claire once they arrive. At the auction, they take their seats as a valuable painting goes up for sale. To Aless's shock, Max actively bids and wins. He's left stunned, wondering where the money could possibly come from. Later, Max speaks with Hames, the auction director, and asks to meet Noah and Joey, the owners of the artwork she just purchased. He tells her that buyers aren't allowed to meet the sellers. Without hesitation, Max lies, claiming she has a romantic relationship with both Noah and Joey, and that she has a child who doesn't know which of them is the father. At that moment, Hames agrees to escort her to their office. Inside the office, Aless introduces himself to Noah and Joey as a police investigator and asks them for the names of the buyers who previously purchased paintings from them. While the conversation unfolds, Max quietly notices a strange mark etched into the floor. Later, as they're about to leave, Max deliberately tears up the paper containing the names and tells Aless that every single name on the list is fake. Then, without hesitation, she admits she's starving and needs food in order to think clearly. Aless responds by saying he'll take her home and order delivery, reminding her that she's not allowed to go out or move freely. When he drops her off, he's surprised to see how large and luxurious the place is, almost like it belongs to someone from a wealthy family. Max casually explains that she has many rich friends who lend her their homes whenever she needs one. At that moment, a man named Ricky shows up to greet her. Shortly afterward, Alice leaves, firmly warning her not to step outside the house. Later that night, Max sneaks back into Noah and Joey's office. Using the mark she noticed on the floor earlier, she locates and opens a hidden door concealed within the office. Suddenly, Alice appears behind her, calling her reckless and reminding her that of course he would be watching her and wouldn't let her act alone. As they open the secret door together, they're both stunned to find Joey lying dead on the floor. Soon after, the police arrive, and forensic investigators determine that Joey was killed by a blow to the head, while the murder weapon is nowhere to be found. The next day, Alice and Max visit Noah and his wife, Penny, to question them about what happened. They learn that the couple spent the entire previous night at home. At that moment, Alice reveals that the last call Joey made from his phone was to the Russian embassy, which leaves Noah visibly shaken. As Alice and Max leave the house, Max tells him she's certain Joey had dealings with a man known as Caviar Stan, someone capable of selling absolutely anything, even a fake Mona Lisa. Alice suggests they confront Caviar Stan directly. However, Max explains it's not that simple. He's the son of a Russian diplomat and enjoys strong legal protection. Still, she assures Alice that there's someone who can help them. Eventually, they visit a man named George in prison. There, Alice discovers that George is actually Max's father. Max asks him to help them arrange a meeting with Caviar Stan. George tells her it's extremely difficult, almost impossible, but when she insists on how important it is, he advises her to call Teddy, promising that Teddy will help. Later on, Max manages to track down the hotel where Caviar Stan regularly plays poker. She and Alice go there together, with Max posing as Irina, a Russian woman from a powerful family. As soon as Caviar Stan sees her, he warmly welcomes her, but makes it clear he doesn't want Alice around. Max reassures him by claiming Alice is her boyfriend and that she needs him nearby for luck while playing poker. She leans in, kisses Alice, and sells the act perfectly. When Max sits down at the table with Caviar Stan, she defeats him effortlessly. Frustrated, he storms off to sit alone, creating the perfect opportunity for them to approach him. However, he refuses to speak and orders his men to threaten them with guns. At that moment, Max calmly points out that one of his men, the one wearing glasses, is cheating using a device hidden in those glasses. Caviar Stan immediately orders his men to check, and soon realizes Max was telling the truth. Only then does he agree to talk. When asked how he knows Joey, he claims he doesn't, saying he got Joey's number from someone he knows named Henry. After that, Alice and Max go to see Henry, who works at the auction house. They ask him when he started working with Joey and Noah, and he tells them he's been with them for 23 years, ever since their father hired him. While there, Alice and Max notice an old photograph of Henry taken in a restaurant with the same symbol behind him, the exact mark the thief leaves after every crime. They arrest Henry and interrogate him at the police station. Under questioning, Henry admits that Joey was the thief, driven by massive debts. Joey had asked Henry for help, and because Henry used to be a thief himself, he taught Joey how to steal and plan the robberies. Alice then accuses Henry of killing Joey. Henry is horrified and insists he would never harm Joey, explaining that he practically raised him and considers himself part of the family. As a result, Alice and Max rule Henry out as the murderer, especially after searching his home and finding no weapon or evidence linking him to the killing. However, Lee remains convinced that Henry is guilty and appears desperate to close the case by any means necessary, even without solid proof. This deeply frustrates Alice, as it reminds him of what happened to him in the past and how history now seems to be repeating itself. Later on, Max calls her father, who surprisingly has full access to his phone and can speak freely from prison. During the call, he tells her about Alice and how his career was derailed by a drug case he was close to solving. As soon as he nearly cracked it, a large stash of cocaine was planted in his car. Although he was eventually cleared, the damage was done. His rank was reduced, and he was reassigned to maritime security. That night, Max goes to see Alice, sits with him, and they talk openly. He confides in her that his brother was killed a year ago during a random robbery, and despite everything, he never managed to catch the killer. Later, Alice and Max head to the restaurant where they saw Henry's old photograph. There, they meet Ronnie, the owner, and ask to review the security footage. He agrees and shows it to them. At that moment, they're shocked to discover that Penny and Joey were having an affair. They take the footage and immediately go to Noah and Penny's house to confront her. Noah is devastated as he watches the video and demands to know how she could betray him with his own brother and then kill him. In a burst of anger and desperation, Penny admits she wanted a different life from the one she was trapped in. Joey promised her that escape, and she believed him. However, when she realized he was lying to her, they fought, and she killed him unintentionally. Noah sits frozen in disbelief as the truth sinks in. Soon after, the police arrive and arrest Penny. The next day, Alice and Max are back at the station, sitting with Lee and Russo. Russo tells Alice that he'll be placed on a 2-month probation period, and if he proves himself, he'll be allowed to return to his desk. As for Max, she adds that there's nothing they can do for her. She's still a thief. At that moment, Ale steps in and insists that Max isn't a thief at all. He explains that she didn't steal the contract from Paglioni's safe. What she actually took was Maria's passport. He then brings Maria in, and Max immediately hugs her, explaining that Maria has worked for Paglioni for 20 years without pay, was treated brutally, and had her passport confiscated so she couldn't leave. Max says she only took it to help her escape and return it to her rightful owner. Lee is confused. If Max didn't steal the contract, how did it disappear? Almost immediately, they learn that Paglioni herself has been arrested after Alice reported her. The contract had been with Paglioni at home the entire time, and she fabricated the whole story just to have Max imprisoned. At that point, Russo decides to send Max to a rehabilitation program instead of jail, choosing to use her talent for strategy and planning to assist the police. Max is overwhelmed with happiness. Later, she visits her father in prison and tells him that the plan they designed together is unfolding exactly as intended. The next day, Max goes to see Aless at his maritime unit. She learns that Lee has already called him early in the morning about a new case. Together, they head to an apartment building where they meet a woman named Bonnie. Bonnie tells them her neighbor hasn't left his apartment in days and hasn't responded to anyone. Using her lock-picking tool, Max opens the door. As soon as she and Alice step inside, they're stunned by the amount of blood on the floor. They soon find the tenant dead. The police arrive along with forensic teams to collect fingerprints and examine the body. They inform Alice and Max that the victim died 12 hours earlier and that a kitchen knife is missing. They identify the victim as Jake, a 40-year-old sports agent. Max notices that Jake's sports trophy is broken, suggesting jealousy as a possible motive. Then, she spots a piece of paper rolled up on the floor, quietly picks it up, and slips it into her pocket. Afterward, she and Alice inspect Jake's car, hoping to find a clue. The parking garage guard is there with them, and when Alice asks about surveillance cameras, the guard claims there's no storage capacity. Nothing recorded is ever saved. Alice finds it suspicious that one of the car windows has been smashed. Max immediately concludes that whoever killed Jake truly hated him. Eventually, they head to the company where Jake worked and meet the manager along with Dr. Melvin. Alice asks Melvin how he knew Jake, and they learn that some of Jake's clients were actually patients of Melvin's, opening yet another door in the case. At that very moment, Max manages to distract Jake's secretary and secretly prints out his call logs along with a full list of his clients. When Alice reviews the records, he notices that 24 hours before his death, Jake repeatedly called a woman named Summerlake. They quickly discover she's one of his clients, a mixed martial arts fighter with 23 million followers, currently preparing for a major match that would make her #1 in the championship if she wins. When they meet her, they ask why Jake called her 24 times before he died. She explains that he was likely calling about a video game deal, which would have made her the first female MMA fighter to have her own game. However, Aless presses her on why she never answered despite the constant calls. Calmly, she tells him she was on a flight back from Norway, and by the time she landed and turned on her phone, she had already learned about Jake's death. At that exact moment, Summerlake receives a call from her doctor. She apologizes to Alice and Max and says she has to leave immediately. Later on, Max points out to Alice that Jake's final call was actually with someone named Kurt Moe, a sports agent who is currently inactive. They attend a press conference Kurt is holding, where his wife, Candace, is standing beside him. Suddenly, Max notices Candace nervously twisting a piece of paper in her hands, the same paper Max found rolled up on the floor in Jake's apartment. Without hesitation, Max poses as a journalist and publicly asks Kurt Moe about his wife's affair with Jake. The room falls into stunned silence. Later, back at the police station, Max confronts Candace with the paper, revealing that it was tested and her fingerprints were found on it. Candace breaks down and confesses that she was indeed having an affair with Jake. Alice and Max then interrogate Kurt Moe, who admits that when he found out, rage consumed him. He went to Jake's apartment, fought with him, and smashed his car out of jealousy, but insists he never killed him. At that moment, Max notices Kurtmo's shoes and realizes they're identical to the ones worn by the parking garage guard. They bring the guard in for questioning, especially since the shoes he's wearing cost far more than his salary would allow. Eventually, they uncover the truth. He lied about the surveillance cameras because they recorded Kurtmo vandalizing the car. Kurt's agent paid him to erase the footage. However, despite all of this, everyone involved has solid alibis, proving none of them actually killed Jake. Meanwhile, Bill storms into the police station, gets into a heated argument with Alice, and demands that they stop questioning his firm's clients without official authorization from the prosecutor's office. Alice pushes back, making it clear that Jake's death is not in Bill's company's best interest, and that cooperating would help him protect himself. Bill reluctantly suggests that Alice speak to a woman named Haley, but warns him not to reveal who pointed him in her direction. Soon after, Alice and Max learn that Haley is a professional cyclist, and that Jake was with her on the night of the murder. When they meet her, she's shocked to hear that Jake is dead. She tells Max that Jake once helped her escape her father's exploitation and theft of her money, and that she fell in love with him because of it. Later, Jake left her, which led to a heated argument between them. At that same moment, Alice notices a blood-stained knife inside the trunk of Haley's car. He immediately arrests her. Later on, Max talks to Alice about Haley, admitting she's not convinced Haley is the killer and that there's still something deeply hidden in the case. That night, Alice sits alone on his yacht, rereading the case file and replaying every detail in his mind. Eventually, something clicks. He goes straight to Max, needing to confirm a theory. Together, they head to the resort where Jake's ex-wife is staying. Max pretends to be a massage therapist, skillfully drawing her into conversation. From her, they learn that Jake transferred £250,000 shortly before his death to a woman named Katrina. Alez and Max track Katrina down, and she explains that the money was meant for her husband, Danny, a former football player. When they ask to meet Danny, Katrina is shocked and tells them that Danny died 3 years ago. Then, she adds something even stranger. Just 2 days ago, she suddenly received a transfer from Jake into her late husband's account. Later, Alice and Max sit together, completely baffled. Every suspect seems to have an airtight alibi. Then Max suddenly remembers Jake's secretary, the one person who would know more about his life than anyone else. The next day, Max visits her at the office and carefully steers the conversation. From her, she learns a crucial truth. Summerlake has a heart condition and is medically unfit to compete in MMA ever again. However, Bill and Dr. Melvin have been lying to the athletes, hiding the truth for their own benefit. After that, Max goes to see Bill, who happens to be with Dr. Melvin at the time. She introduces herself as a journalist interested in conducting an interview. Since they have no idea she's secretly working with Alice and the police, they immediately agree. Max hands them microphones to clip onto their clothes and casually explains that she'll start recording shortly, adding that as long as the microphone light is glowing red, it means it's turned off. Reassured, they comply. Moments later, Bill pulls Melvin aside for a private conversation, first making sure the microphone light is red. That's when the truth comes out. They openly admit they've agreed not to tell Summerlake about her heart condition and to keep deceiving her so she'll fight the final match. If she wins, her video game will officially launch, bringing in millions. However, Melvin hesitates and warns Bill that what they're doing is extremely dangerous, reminding him that Summerlake could die, just like Danny did. Bill snaps back angrily, telling him that after killing Jake, he won't let anyone ruin his plans now. Suddenly, Bill's own words echo through the venue's speakers. The police storm in and arrest both Bill and Melvin. At that moment, Max calmly reveals that she manipulated the microphone settings, switching the red light to indicate recording instead of green. Not long after, they're shocked to see Summerlake entering the match, completely fearless, willing to risk her life. They try desperately to stop her, but she insists on fighting. As the match progresses, the strain overwhelms her. Aless approaches her again, urging her to think twice. This time, his words reach her. She finally decides to withdraw from the fight. Later, she speaks to the press, explaining that she learned just 2 days before the match that she has a serious heart condition, and that's why she stepped away. Later on, Max sits with Alice and tells him that if she weren't a con artist, she would have loved to become a physicist, or maybe work in real estate. Alice listens quietly, clearly enjoying the moment with her. The next day, Lee asks Alice and Max to travel to a small town where the local butcher has mysteriously disappeared. On the way, they review the case file and learn that the butcher's name is Lucas, a volunteer who helps the elderly. When they arrive and inspect Lucas's truck, they find it completely empty. Suddenly, they notice 3 hearts covered in blood at the scene. Aless immediately realizes the hearts belong to animals, not humans, and calls for forensics and police units to collect fingerprints. Later, they visit Lucas's butcher shop. The employee there is visibly shaken, explaining that this is is the first time Lucas has ever missed work. He hasn't answered his phone since yesterday, and even his truck is gone. The employee also mentions that Lucas has a fondness for wine. Following that lead, Alès and Max head to the restaurant where Lucas was last seen. They speak with the chef, who appears strangely indifferent to Lucas's disappearance. At that moment, Harlan, the owner of both the local winery and the restaurant, storms in, arguing with the chef for abruptly turning the place into a vegan restaurant without consulting him. He's also furious that she refused to accept Lucas's last delivery. Later, Alès and Max go to the winery, where Harlan is chatting with customers. Suddenly, he becomes irritated when he notices a woman named Pam hanging animal photos on the walls. He abandons his guests, rushes over, tears the photos down, and accuses her of scaring away customers. Alice and Max step in and ask what's going on. Pam explains that she's dedicated to saving wolves and that her wolves have recently gone missing. She's posting their photos everywhere, hoping someone might recognize them and contact her. Harlan angrily insists she's frightening customers and ruining his wine festival. At that moment, they notice crows circling in the sky, a sign that something is wrong. They follow the birds, knowing their behavior usually points to a body. Moments later, they discover Lucas's corpse. Pam turns to Max and insists there's no way her wolves could have done this. Alès studies the scene and points out that there isn't enough blood for Lucas to have died there, meaning he was killed somewhere else before being dumped at this location. Together with Pam, they search for the wolves and eventually locate Lucas's truck. Inside, they find a bag filled with chicken hearts that Lucas was supposed to deliver to a man named Peter. When they track Peter down, he nervously explains that he uses chicken hearts in his anatomy class. He's a biology teacher at the local school. Clearly shaken, he tells them he has a parents' meeting to attend right away, leaving Alès and Max with yet another unsettling lead. As Alès and Max step outside to get into their car and leave, they discover it's been broken into and everything inside has been stolen. Suddenly, they spot Peter driving away. At that moment, they realize he lied about the parents' meeting. They follow him until night falls and eventually catch him gathering with several people from the town, performing what appears to be a ritual. The next day, Alès questions Peter, the chef, and a woman named Mona, since all of them were present at the ritual. He suspects they may be connected to Lucas's death. However, they explain that these rituals are meant to symbolically remove someone they love from their hearts. They admit they were afraid the spell might have gone wrong and accidentally killed Lucas. Later, Lee presents the forensic report, revealing that Lucas was actually killed by a gunshot to the heart, fired from a very old, classic-style handgun. That night, Alès stays up late reviewing the case file. One of his colleagues hands him Lucas's wallet, which was found on him. Inside, Alès discovers a small bone. He immediately goes to Max to talk to her about it, then suddenly remembers seeing the same type of bone with Pam. When they visit her, Pam explains that she and Lucas once had a romantic relationship, and that the bone is known as a wishbone. Suddenly, Pam's wolf tracking device starts beeping, indicating the wolves are nearby. They follow her into the forest, where they discover a hidden tunnel. As they descend, they're shocked to find a secret underground wine storage. They quickly realize it belongs to Harlan, and that he's been running a scam, cheating customers with counterfeit wine. Max decides to confront Harlan directly, while Alès stays behind in the tunnel. Moments later, Alès finds himself face to face with Harlan, who threatens him with a gun and orders him to drop his weapon. Alès understands instantly. Harlan killed Lucas because Lucas discovered the wine fraud. If the truth came out, the family empire would collapse. Harlan mocks Alès, arrogantly declaring himself the king of the town. Suddenly, Max arrives, along with Harlan's clients. They're stunned to see him holding a gun and threatening a police officer. Seizing the moment, Max exposes him in front of everyone as the clients begin live streaming the scene. With all eyes on him, the police finally arrest Harlan. The next day, police discover the body of a surfer who died during a live stream he recorded at sea the night before. Forensics determined that traces of wax were found under the victim's fingernails. Alès and Max are frustrated when Lee brings in additional investigators on the case. At the station, the four of them review the details and learn that the victim's name is Ko, an Australian national with an outstanding warrant. Later, Alès goes undercover at the beach, pretending to be a surfer, just like Shelley and Slater, Ko's close friends. He blends in, earns their trust, and soon they invite him to spend the night with them and their group by the shore. Suddenly, Slater shows up and urgently tells Shelley they need to leave. When Alès asks why, Slater snaps at him, grabs Shelley, and they drive off together. Not long after, Max joins Alès, and together they keep Shelley and Slater under surveillance. They soon discover the truth. The surfboards they're receiving shipments of are stuffed with drugs, used as a smuggling method. Alès and Max continue monitoring them, now convinced they're connected to Ko's death. Shelley and Slater stop at their shared house, unload bags of drugs, then Shelley leaves alone and drives off. Alès follows him, while Max enters the house, only to find it completely empty, with no drugs inside. Suddenly, she hears a delivery truck outside, belonging to a fruit and vegetable transport company. The next morning, Max goes undercover at that delivery company, pretending to be a new employee. She meets Cassie, who's immediately scolded by the manager, Tripp. Frustrated and angry, Cassie confides in Max that Tripp is a drug user. Max quickly calls Alès with the new information. Alès then contacts his colleague, Simmons, asking for help with the case. That night, when Simmons goes to Tripp's house, he makes a shocking discovery. Tripp is dead in his car. Simmons immediately informs Alès and Max, leaving them once again standing at the edge of a far darker truth. The next morning, Alès pretends in front of Shelley and Slater that the police are chasing him, claiming they're searching for the person who killed a man named Tripp. Shelley is immediately shaken by the news, while Slater looks genuinely confused, clearly having no idea who Tripp even is. At the same time, Max is inside Tripp's office, trying to extract files from his computer. Suddenly, Cassie walks in and asks why Max is in Tripp's office. Thinking fast, Max tells her she's there to leave flowers for Tripp. Moments later, Max calls Ricky and asks him to search online for any possible connection between Shelley and Tripp. Later on, Max crawls into the ventilation shaft after noticing Shelley and Cassie entering the storage room together. From above, she overhears everything, and the truth finally comes out. Shelley and Cassie are romantically involved, and each of them has killed for the other. Co was killed by Cassie, while Tripp was killed by Shelley. Max immediately calls Alès to tell him what she's discovered. Suddenly, she loses her balance and falls straight out of the ventilation opening, landing right in front of them. Cassie instantly realizes Max overheard their confession. She pulls out a gun, threatens her, and orders Shelley to tie her up. As soon as Alès hears what happened to Max, he rushes to the company. He searches everywhere but can't find her. Desperate, he calls Ricky and asks him to track one of the company's shipments to locate her. Eventually, Alès and the police reach Max's location just in time, stopping Cassie and Shelley moments before they force her to jump into the sea. Shelley is stunned when he realizes Alès is actually a police officer and that he was fooled the entire time. The police arrest both Shelley and Cassie on the spot. Back at the station, Alès thanks Simmons for his help on the case. Later that night, Max goes to see Alès on his yacht. He's clearly shaken, upset that she was put in a situation where her life was nearly taken. Calmly, Max reassures him, telling him she knows how to survive situations like that. Afterward, Lee speaks to both of them. He tells Max that she must always work within the law and never cross the line, no matter what. Then, he turns to Alès and makes it clear he expects him to teach her that lesson, because he doesn't want to learn that either of them is in danger ever again. Later, Alès and Max are driving when Alès suddenly receives a call from his colleague, Rachel. She's in serious trouble and urgently needs his help. He rushes to the address she gives him. As soon as Rachel sees him, she hugs him tightly. Alès feels a sharp pang of jealousy when she insists on sitting in the front seat, forcing Max into the back. On the way, Rachel explains that armed mafia members attacked her. She suspects they did it to abduct Albert, a man connected to the mafia who was supposed to testify against them the next day. She also believes her location was leaked by a corrupt officer inside the police force. Max grows curious and asks about Alès' relationship with Rachel. He admits that they were once engaged. Max is completely stunned. Soon after, they visit George in prison. Since he once worked with the mafia, they ask him for help locating Albert. George tells them that a fortune teller named Bongo can help. Max then prepares to go alone, knowing that if Bongo discovers Alès and Rachel are police officers, she'll refuse to talk. When Max meets Bongo and gives her the secret code shared between her and her father, Bongo suddenly calls in her bodyguard. She speaks openly with Max about George, admitting she once loved him, but that he broke her heart. Max then returns to Alès and Rachel and tells them they need to go to the park to find a man named Bobby, just as Bongo instructed. When they spot Bobby, he immediately panics and runs as soon as he realizes they came from Bongo. Alès chases him down and catches him. Bobby denies knowing Albert at first, but Alès and Rachel warn him that he'll go to prison if he doesn't talk. Terrified, Bobby finally confesses. They're shocked to learn the truth. Albert staged his own kidnapping. No one abducted him. Bobby then gives them the address of the forger who's currently creating Albert's fake passport, setting the stage for the final move in a dangerous game that's far from over. When they reach the forger's place, they find his flower shop wide open. As soon as they step inside, they discover he's been killed and Albert's passport is nowhere to be found. They also notice he was preparing a major flower delivery for a client named Mary. Using the payment receipts, they get her address and head to her workplace. There, they discover that Mary is Albert's girlfriend, and Albert himself is hiding in plain sight. Max recognizes him instantly and quietly warns him that if he doesn't come with her calmly, Aless and Rachel will arrest him without any negotiation. Terrified, Albert agrees and moves with her. Suddenly, as they're leaving, a gunman attacks them. They jump into the car just in time and manage to escape. On the road, Albert explains that the attacker was Charles, his personal bodyguard, who turned against him the moment Albert decided to testify for the police. Max then takes them to the house where she's staying with Ricky. Later that night, Max is shocked when she sees Alice and Rachel kissing. The sadness is written all over her face. Afterward, Max goes to Albert's room, where he's being kept, and he tells her about the flash drive he has, one that contains recordings of all the mafia's operations and secret deals. He says he's ready to hand it over, but only if they get him out of there alive. Suddenly, the power cuts out across the entire house. Masked men storm in and attack Alice and Rachel. A violent fight breaks out, but in the end, the attackers flee. Alice and Rachel rush to Albert's room, only to find him gone, and Max lying unconscious on the floor. The next morning, the police arrive at the house and question Rachel about what happened. It's clear she's suspicious of Max. At that moment, it's revealed that Charles was the one who kidnapped Albert. Suddenly, Albert's phone rings. Charles answers it, and it's Max on the line. She tells him she knows exactly where they are, that she now has the flash drive, and that killing Albert won't benefit the mafia as long as the evidence isn't in their hands. She makes it clear she's willing to trade the flash drive for money. Later, Charles meets Max at the location she specified. Aless and Rachel are with her. Max orders everyone to place their weapons on the ground. She tells Charles she'll hand over the flash drive and he'll release Albert. However, the moment Charles takes the drive, he pulls out a hidden gun and tries to kill Albert. Aless lunges at him, and in the chaos, Albert falls into the river. Moments later, the police arrive along with rescue teams. Charles is arrested while the rescue divers begin searching the river for Albert. At that moment, the truth comes out. Max was the one who helped Charles reach the house to kidnap Albert. She had already made a deal with Bobby to loosen the bridge railing, making it easy for Albert to fall. A hidden safety bag was prepared beneath the bridge so Albert wouldn't hit the water. After rescuing him, Bobby hid the bag along with all the evidence. The next day, Rachel asks Alice to leave everything behind and travel with her, to start over somewhere far away. He refuses. She warns him about Max, telling him that a criminal never truly changes. Meanwhile, Max goes to retrieve the flash drive from the place Albert told her about. A few days later, Max and Alice are assigned to a film set to protect a group of actors who've been receiving anonymous threats. The producer, Wendy, greets them and shows them the second threat message, one that was delivered by hand, not by mail. That means the person behind the threats is someone from the cast itself. Aless and Max begin questioning the entire crew. Max sits down with Christine, who admits she's been leaking news about the production despite Wendy's strict orders not to share anything until filming is complete. At the same time, Aless speaks with Sherlyn, one of the actresses, who suspects that Christine herself might be the one sending the threatening messages. Then, suddenly, the actor Matt suffers severe burns the moment he steps into direct sunlight. When Aless and Max question him, they discover he didn't apply any new creams to his body and that the makeup team handles everything for him. They immediately go to Piper, the makeup artist, and inspect the tools she uses. There, they find sunscreen. To test it, Aless applies it to his own hand and steps into the sun. Instantly, his skin begins to burn. That's when they realize the substance that burned Matt was the sunscreen itself. Piper panics and swears she had nothing to do with it. Aless asks her who else has access to the makeup supplies, and she tells him that every member of the cast can access them at any time. Later on, Aless and Max learn from Wendy that Matt recently fired his longtime driver and replaced him with someone else, even though the original driver was very close to him. Aless and Max question the driver, who reveals that Christine was involved in a relationship with Matt, but he ended things with her a week ago. Max confronts Christine with this information, suggesting that out of anger, she might want revenge. Christine completely denies having anything to do with it. Suddenly, chaos erupts when Andy, one of the actors, is found dead, despite the fact that no outsider entered or left the filming location. Police and forensic teams arrive immediately. Aless and Max bring all the actors to the station for questioning. Later, Aless sits with Simmons and Max and checks Andy's phone. He's stunned to find heated messages between Andy and Wendy, the producer. They argue repeatedly in the texts. Aless and Max confront Wendy with the messages, along with a video found on Andy's phone proving they were in a romantic relationship. relationship. Wendy admits that Andy was blackmailing her, threatening to send the videos to her husband unless she cast him in a new series. She says she believed he was wrong for the role, but insists she would never kill anyone because that would destroy her career and the series that's almost finished. Not long after, Alez and Max find Charlene gasping for air, barely able to breathe. Christine quickly pulls an emergency allergy injection from her bag. Charlene is severely allergic to peanuts. They soon realize that someone replaced Charlene's juice with a drink containing peanut butter. Soon after, Simmons and his colleague Yates discover another body on the road. It's Piper's mother. Piper collapses in shock when she learns about her mother's death. As the investigation deepens, the homes of all the actors are searched. Alez and Yates find Matt's car, Claire, which shows clear signs of a recent collision, along with bloodstains. At the same time, sealed envelopes arrive for all the actors, sent by an unknown person. That night, they all gather at the cemetery, exactly as instructed in the letters. It's there that the truth is revealed. No one had been stalking them. It was all a carefully planned scheme by the three of them, Matt, Christine, and Charlene, to kill Andy without raising suspicion. At that very moment, Matt's car suddenly lights up, blasting an audio recording at full volume. It's a confession. Matt, Christine, and Charlene admitting they hit Piper's mother on the road and left her to die. Max steps forward with the police, and all three are arrested on the spot. A few days later, George is released from prison for 72 hours, an ankle monitor strapped to his leg. Max is waiting for him, and her joy is unmistakable when she sees him. Meanwhile, Aless learns about a teenage boy named Gigi, who's been detained for allegedly breaking into his house and robbing it. When Aless speaks with him, he discovers that Gigi built a remote-controlled drone himself. The drone used in the break-in turns out to be his, but Gigi swears he wasn't the one controlling it. No one believes him, especially since he's a poor student attending an elite school for the wealthy. Later, Aless goes to see Lee and speaks passionately about Gigi. He explains that he's certain the boy is innocent. The first person who ever believed in Gigi was his own brother, the one who got him into that school to keep him off the streets, because he saw the intelligence that could one day make him someone important. Aless insists it makes no sense for Gigi to lose his future and end up in prison for a crime he didn't commit. Lee listens, then tells Aless that if he's so sure, he needs to find proof and bring him evidence that Gigi is innocent. After that, Aless goes to the school to gather more information about the students from the principal, Dana. There, he meets Chris, one of the teachers, who is in his final year before retirement. As soon as Dana learns that Aless wants to speak with the students, she flatly refuses. Aless then calls Max and asks for her help. At the time, Max is sitting with her father, who decides to join in and help them as well. The next day, Max goes undercover as a new teacher at the school. She enters Gigi's classroom and casually asks the students about him. Brittany responds with clear satisfaction, saying Gigi was arrested and doesn't belong with them, insisting he should never have been part of their school. Meanwhile, Anne shows no interest in the topic at all. She's far more focused on the robotic baby she built herself. At the same time, Simmons questions Gigi and makes it clear that he must explain how the home's surveillance cameras were hacked during the burglary, especially if he claims he wasn't the one who committed the crime. They warn him that protecting someone else won't help him in the long run. Meanwhile, Aless meets with Max and her father and points out something strange. A child's voice appears in the surveillance recordings, even though there are no children living in the house. Later on, Max returns to the school and convinces Anne to hand over the robotic baby, claiming it's crying non-stop and distracting her from studying. Anne eventually agrees. Max then throws the robot out the window, where Ricky catches it and hands it off to George, Ange, and Alice. That night, Alice and Max interrogate Anne at the police station. They reveal that the sound of her robotic baby appeared in recordings from 3 separate home burglaries. Terrified, Anne breaks down and confesses that she wasn't acting alone. Brittany and Vince were with her the entire time. The police then bring Brittany and Vince in for questioning. They admit they committed the burglaries to gain entry into a group known as the Skull and Key. They show the investigators messages from the group and confirm that Gigi had nothing to do with any of it. They also confess that they stole Gigi's drone without his knowledge. Afterward, Aless and Max try to identify who's exploiting children to carry out these burglaries. When they show the messages to Dana, she claims they're fake. However, it quickly becomes clear that she's a member of the group herself. She insists the group doesn't encourage children to steal and portrays it as a peaceful, educational organization. Still unconvinced, Alice, Max, and George devise a plan with Brittany and Vince. They instruct them to continue responding to the messages as usual, while the team secretly monitors everything to uncover who's really behind it all. Eventually, they discover the truth. The mastermind is Chris, the teacher. When confronted, he doesn't deny it. Instead, he admits he was desperate. His salary no longer covered his expenses, despite over 20 years of service in education, and he felt completely unappreciated. When Gigi is finally released from detention, Vince goes to him and apologizes for stealing his drone. He admits that even then, Gigi never exposed them, despite appearing in the surveillance footage. Still, Gigi is deeply hurt and refuses to accept the apology. Around the same time, Max says goodbye to her father as he returns to prison. His 72-hour release has officially ended. The following day, Alice and Max arrive at a new crime scene. They find a body floating in the private swimming pool of the house where the incident occurred, with large sums of cash scattered across the water. Forensics determined that the crime took place at exactly 8 p.m. and that the victim is a doctor named Sophie, who was killed before being dumped into the pool. At that moment, Daphne, Sophie's business manager, arrives at the scene. Aless and Max question her about why she was so determined to enter the house. Daphne explains that she urgently needs Sophie's laptop, which contains a dream interpretation book Sophie had written. If it were stolen, it would cause serious problems. Aless informs her that the laptop is already in police custody, as it may be crucial evidence. He then asks where she was the previous night. Daphne claims she was attending a conference in London and returned at 6 a.m., adding that she still has her plane ticket to prove it. After that, Aless and Max head to the wellness retreat founded by Sophie, with Daphne accompanying them to introduce the staff. The retreat is holding a memorial ceremony in Sophie's honor. The host, Wendell, steps up to speak about Sophie and suddenly shocks everyone by confessing that he's the one who killed her. The entire room freezes in disbelief. Later, Aless and Max interrogate him and ask why he murdered Sophie, yet something feels off. His answers sound rehearsed, unnatural, almost memorized. Max then uncovers a disturbing detail. Sophie's books aren't fictional at all. They're real stories about her patient's suffering, written without names. She realizes that the character named David is actually Wendell himself, and that Sophie had been hypnotizing him. At that moment, Max suspects that Wendell's confession was made under the influence of hypnosis. To confirm it, Aless and Max return to the retreat, pretending they're seeking hypnotherapy, determined to find out who else, besides Sophie, can perform hypnosis. They meet with every doctor one by one, subtly gathering information about Sophie. As they leave the retreat, Max tells Alice that Dr. Joanne strongly hinted that both Daphne and Dr. C might be connected to Sophie's death. Aless and Max question Daphne again, confronting her with the truth. Sophie fired her shortly before her death, yet Daphne lied and claimed she only wanted the laptop for work. Daphne breaks down, admitting that after 5 years of working with Sophie, she was dismissed through a third party. She insists she was the reason behind Sophie's success and fame, but swears she would never kill her, no matter what. Eventually, Max pieces everything together and realizes that Joanne has been deceiving them all along, and that she's the one using hypnosis. Alice and Max confront her at her home. Panicked, Joanne tries to flee, climbing onto her balcony railing, ready to jump. She confesses through tears that she never intended to kill Sophie. She says she spent her entire life being invisible, conducting research for Sophie at the university, and secretly writing the books that made Sophie famous. When she finally demanded recognition, Sophie mocked her. Joanne tried to take the money and leave, but Sophie refused and tried to stop her. And in that moment, Joanne lost control and struck her with a sharp object. Max gently talks her down, promising that she'll make sure Daphne publishes Joanne's book, this time with Joanne's name on it. She reminds her that even if she goes to prison, people remember the words more than the person who wrote them. Joanne finally listens and steps back from the edge. The next day, Max is at the bank when a sudden armed robbery erupts. The gunmen force employees and customers to the floor and confiscate their phones. One of them drags the security guard to the surveillance room to shut the cameras down. Meanwhile, Aless tries calling Max, but she doesn't answer. Alarmed, he contacts Ricky, who tells him Max went to the bank. Aless activates the tracker on her phone and confirms she's still inside. He immediately alerts the police. When officers arrive, they find the bank sealed shut. Moments later, the robbers attempt to escape, only to be met by armed police. A shootout breaks out. Aless arrives at the scene and spots Max through a window. He tries desperately to enter through back doors or windows. At the same time, more police units surround the bank. Aless photographs the robbers from a distance and sends the images to Lee. Lee calls him immediately, warning him him not to engage. The hostage's safety comes first. Lee then calls the bank to negotiate. Max quietly signals one of the robbers not to answer, explaining that police can identify voices. They force her to act as the intermediary. At that moment, Max spots Alice standing far away, motioning toward the girl sitting next to her. Max gently takes the earbuds from the girl's ears and discreetly connects them to her phone. Through the earpiece, Lee speaks to Max, instructing her to engage the robbers in conversation, slowly drawing them out and extracting as much information as possible. Soon after, the robbers order Max and a pregnant woman to get up and make them coffee. Then they decide to move all the hostages into the conference room, locking them inside, escalating the situation to its most dangerous point yet. At the same time, police managed to identify one of the robbers. His name is Derek, recently released from prison just 3 months ago, and his mother is currently living in a nursing home. Lee immediately orders the officers to bring Derek's mother to the scene so she can speak to him. Inside the bank, gunshots suddenly echo through the building. Max rushes toward the sound, only to find that Derek has shot Alice. She completely breaks down in fear for him. However, Derek allows Max to treat Alice on the spot, not wanting to cross the line by killing a police officer. As Max tends to Alice among the terrified hostages, she quietly whispers something in his ear. Moments later, the robbers storm back in and grab the pregnant woman, planning to use her as a human shield as they exit the bank. Suddenly, the woman pretends to go into labor and collapses to the ground. That instant distraction gives the police their opening. They rush in, overpower the robbers, and arrest them all. As Alice and Max exit the bank, the so-called pregnant woman is arrested as well and taken to the station for questioning. Max confronts her, revealing that she already knew she was working with the robbers. She saw her attempting to break into the safety deposit boxes. Alice then shows her a photo of her with Derek and his mother at the nursing home. He also exposes the truth. She isn't pregnant at all, but wearing a fake inflatable belly. Later, Lee sits down with Alice and Max, furious with them for breaking protocol and putting both their lives and the hostages' lives at risk. Alice pushes back, saying that when he was shot, Max ran toward him without hesitation. If she had been a fellow officer, he argues, no one would have questioned her actions. He then walks out with Max. Alice drops Max off at her house. The tension between them is unmistakable, and it's clear they're deeply drawn to each other. Just as Alice is about to confess his feelings, someone calls out to Max from inside the house. Alice freezes when he realizes the voice belongs to Olivier, Max's husband. A heated argument erupts between Max and Olivier. He accuses her of stealing all his properties and estates and of having a lawyer forge documents proving that his entire fortune now belongs to her. Max coldly tells him she'll only return everything if he does exactly what she asks. The next morning, Max visits her father in prison and assures him that she's finally putting her plan into motion. He warns her that once this is over, she can't contact him again. She'll need to disappear, leave the country, and never look back. Later, Max goes to Alice and apologizes for hiding the truth about her marriage. He tells her he already knows. Rachel informed him that her husband is a dangerous international thief. Lee interrupts and summons both of them to his office. Max explains that Olivier came to her the night before, presenting himself as a legitimate investor. Alice immediately cuts in, insisting Olivier is a professional international armed robbery expert. Max ignores him and continues, revealing Olivier's real target, the Imperial Egg, a priceless artifact worth $33 million. She admits she agreed to help him and insists that all of them must help too. Everyone is stunned. After a tense pause, Russo agrees to hear Max's plan. Max explains that the egg belongs to a man named Jeremiah, a wealthy collector of rare artifacts who bought it 2 years ago. Since Jeremiah is hosting a grand party at his palace in a few days, Max will attend with Olivier. The police will already be present since the mayor and his wife are on the guest list. That night, Alès meets privately with Max and Olivier. Pretending to be on Olivier's side, Alès agrees to help with the heist in exchange for money. Olivier trusts him, especially because he believes Alès' career collapsed after the drug scandal. On the night of the party, everyone takes their positions. Max and Olivier enter the palace and meet Jeremiah, who is immediately charmed by Max. A short while later, Olivier slips away toward the vault containing the Imperial Egg. Soon after, Jeremiah proudly addresses his guests, speaking about the egg's immense historical value and the extraordinary effort it took to acquire it. He boasts about the massive insurance policy protecting it and then delivers the final blow. The vault can only be opened with the special watch he's wearing. At that moment, Max, Alès, and Olivier exchange stunned looks, while Olivier stands frozen in front of the vault, realizing the plan has just hit an unexpected dead end. Through the earpiece, Max calmly tells them she'll handle it. She moves closer to Jeremiah, flatters him effortlessly, and with smooth precision, slips the watch off his wrist. Without anyone noticing, she discreetly passes it to Alès, who immediately hands it over to Olivier. Using the watch, Olivier opens the vault, removes the imperial egg, and walks away as if nothing happened. Moments later, Alès returns the watch to Max, who skillfully slips it back onto Jeremiah's wrist before he even realizes it was gone. At that point, Alès discovers that Olivier has already escaped with the egg. He rushes after him, but Olivier turns and threatens him with a gun. Suddenly, Simmons and police units storm in. Cornered, Olivier panics, drops the weapon, and finally realizes the truth. Max played him and sided with the police against him. Olivier is arrested on the spot and taken into custody. Back at the police station, Rousseau informs Max that she's officially free. She also tells Alès that he'll be reinstated and returned to his desk. Later, Alès says goodbye to Max, the sadness clear in his eyes. That night, Alès tries calling Max, only to discover that both her phone and Ricky's are out of service. Instantly uneasy, he senses something is wrong. Acting on instinct, he opens the imperial egg and freezes. Inside, he discovers it's a fake. In that moment, the truth is revealed. Max and Ricky had planned this all along. While everyone else was focused on the arrest and the operation, Max quietly swapped the real imperial egg with a replica, keeping the priceless original for herself.